Her mother could see her. That's the detail that makes this case so hard to sit with, not that a child wandered off unsupervised, but that 6-year-old Morgan Nick was standing in plain sight in a lit parking lot, feet away from dozens of adults, chasing fireflies with 2 other children after a Little League game. Colleen Nick checked on her daughter 3 or 4 times that evening. Each time, Morgan was right there. And then, in the time it took a baseball game to end and a crowd to start packing up lawn chairs, she was gone. 31 years later, Morgan Nick has never been found. But in the fall of 2024, this case did something most cold cases never do. It produced a named suspect, built entirely on DNA evidence recovered from a truck that had changed hands multiple times over nearly 3 decades. This is her story, and it is still, as of this recording, an active investigation. This is Unsolved and Unforgotten. Tonight's case became the namesake for an entire state's child abduction alert system, and its investigation produced one of the most significant forensic breakthroughs in a decades-old missing child case anywhere in the country. Everything in this episode is drawn from official police statements, FBI releases, and verified reporting through the summer of 2026. On the evening of Friday, June the 9th, 1995, Colleen Nick drove roughly 30 minutes from her family's home in Ozark, Arkansas, to the town of Alma to watch a Little League baseball game with her 6-year-old daughter, Morgan. Alma, a small city in Crawford County in the northwestern corner of the state, was hosting a game that night at the Alma Baseball Complex, near the intersection of Locke and Walnut Streets. The Wofford baseball field sat at the center of a small parking lot area, the kind of setting where, on a warm June evening, dozens of families gathered together. Children ran between cars while parents watched from lawn chairs, and nobody thought twice about letting kids play within eyeshot of the game. Morgan was, by her mother's account, an affectionate and clearly attached child. Colleen Nick would later recall, in an interview given to the television program Dateline in 2019, that before Morgan ran off to play, she threw her arms around her mother's neck and kissed her cheek. That kiss would turn out to be the last physical contact Colleen Nick would ever have with her daughter. As the game wound down, at approximately 10:45 in the evening, Morgan and 2 other children left the bleacher area to catch fireflies in the parking lot adjacent to the field. Colleen Nick has said publicly that she was initially hesitant to let her daughter go. The area was unfamiliar to them, since they lived 30 minutes away in a different town, but other parents at the game assured her the lot was safe and within sight. According to Colleen's own account, she checked on the children repeatedly throughout the game's final minutes, and each time, she could see Morgan in the lot, well within view. This is one of the most important documented facts of the entire case. Morgan Nick did not wander off into an unmonitored space. She disappeared from a parking lot her own mother was actively watching, in the middle of a crowd, during a live event with dozens of witnesses present. When the game ended, the 2 friends Morgan had been playing with returned to the bleacher area. Morgan did not. In the hours and days that followed, investigators with the Alma Police Department collected statements from witnesses who had been present at the ballpark that night. Several accounts described a man standing near a distinctive vehicle, a red pickup truck fitted with a white camper shell, who had reportedly been seen talking to Morgan in the parking lot area shortly before she vanished. At the time of her disappearance, Morgan was wearing a green Girl Scout shirt, blue denim shorts, and white tennis shoes, a description distributed widely to law enforcement agencies and the public in the days that followed, though it would ultimately lead nowhere without a name attached to the vehicle witnesses described. Search efforts began almost immediately. Local and state law enforcement combed the surrounding area of Alma, while the case rapidly drew regional and then national media attention enough that, within weeks, the Arkansas legislature would move to formally name the state's newly developed child abduction alert system after her, the Morgan Nick Amber Alert. No trace of Morgan, no clothing, no physical evidence at the scene beyond witness testimony was ever recovered. Approximately 2 months after Morgan's disappearance, Alma police developed their first significant person of interest, a man named Billy Jack Links. Links was born and raised in Crawford County, Arkansas. He had served in the United States Army during the Second World War, later worked for Braniff Airlines in Dallas from 1962 to 1974, and had returned to the Van Buren area, near Alma, sometime in the 1970s. He came to police attention not initially through the Morgan Nick investigation directly, but because he was separately arrested and investigated for the attempted kidnapping of another young girl in the weeks following Morgan's disappearance. Arkansas court records, reviewed by reporters, would later confirm that Links was convicted of sexual solicitation of a child in 1996. Given the proximity of that arrest, both in time and geography, to Morgan's disappearance, Alma police questioned Links directly about her case in 1995. According to statements later given publicly by Alma Police Chief Jeff Pointer, Links denied any knowledge of Morgan's abduction and, in the department's assessment at the time, appeared to be truthful. Investigators moved on from him as a lead. For the next 24 years, the case would remain, in practical terms, exactly where it had been left in 1995, open, but without a confirmed suspect. Detectives investigated more than 10,000 leads over those decades, an extraordinary volume that reflects both the intense public interest the case generated and the fundamental difficulty of a stranger abduction, with no confirmed physical evidence at the scene. In the year following Morgan's disappearance, Colleen Nick founded the Morgan Nick Foundation, an organization dedicated to supporting the families of other missing children and adults across the country. Over the following decades, Colleen became one of the most visible and consistent advocates for missing persons legislation and family support systems in the United States, a role she has occupied for more than 30 years, appearing in national television coverage, congressional testimony on child safety legislation, and, in 2023, as the central subject of a 4-part ABC News Studios and Scott Free Productions documentary series titled Still Missing Morgan, which also examined the parallel case of Jacob Wetterling, a Minnesota boy abducted in 1989. Throughout this period, the case itself remained cold in the technical sense. No new suspect, no new physical evidence, even as public interest in Morgan's story never fully faded. In July of 2019, the Alma Police Department began a fresh review of the earliest stages of the investigation. Retired Captain Brett Hartley, working through the case files from the beginning, came upon the Billy Jack Links lead once more, the same name that had been questioned and set aside in 1995. This time, investigators pursued the lead differently. By 2020, detectives had tracked down the pickup truck Links had owned at the time of Morgan's disappearance, the very type of vehicle multiple 1995 witnesses had described. The truck had changed hands several times in the intervening 25 years. Investigators located its current owner, who granted police permission to search the vehicle. Officers vacuumed the truck's interior, collecting several canisters of trace material hair, fibers, and other matter recovered from within the cab. That evidence was turned over to the FBI for forensic analysis, beginning a process that would take several more years to produce results. In June of 2021, 26 years after Morgan's disappearance, the FBI issued a new public appeal for information, stating that investigators believed they were closer than ever to identifying the person responsible for her abduction. By this point, according to reporting from the time, Morgan's case file filled an entire room. The FBI's renewed statement centered specifically on Billy Jack Links, laying out his background publicly for the first time in connection with the case and asking anyone with information about his activities, associates, or whereabouts around June of 1995 to come forward. Links himself was not available to answer to any of it. He had died in prison in 2000, at the age of 75, while incarcerated for an unrelated offense nearly 2 decades, before investigators would develop the forensic evidence that would formally name him a suspect in Morgan's case. The evidence collected from Links's former truck was sent in December of 2023 to Othram Laboratory, a Texas-based forensic genealogy company that specializes in advanced DNA analysis techniques not available to investigators in 1995 techniques, capable of building usable genetic profiles from extremely limited or degraded biological material, including hair samples without root structure attached. On September the 27th, 2024, the lab's report came back. It determined that a hair recovered from inside Links's former truck belonged either to Colleen Nick herself or to one of her siblings or children, meaning, in practical terms, to Morgan or to a close blood relative of hers. Investigators moved quickly to rule out an innocent explanation. They interviewed members of the Nick family directly and confirmed that none of them had ever known Billy Jack Links, and none had ever been inside his truck at any point for any reason. On October the 1st, 2024, Alma Police Chief Jeff Pointer held a press conference to announce the department's conclusion. Physical evidence collected from the truck Lynx owned at the time of Morgan's abduction, he said, strongly indicated that Morgan had been inside that vehicle. For the first time in the case's 29-year history, investigators formally named a suspect, Billy Jack Lynx. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders issued a public statement following the announcement, thanking the Alma Police Department, the Arkansas State Police, and every law enforcement agency involved in what she described as 29 years of unyielding effort, and offering particular recognition to Colleen Nick for turning her grief into the advocacy work of the Morgan Nick Foundation. At the same press conference, Colleen Nick addressed Lynx directly, noting the army of supporters, advocates, and investigators who had worked for decades to reach that moment, and stating plainly that whatever Lynx had believed he accomplished by taking her daughter, he had not won. It is important to state clearly what this DNA breakthrough established and what it did not. The forensic evidence strongly indicates that Morgan Nick was, at some point, inside the truck Billy Jack Lynx owned in June of 1995. It does not, on its own, prove the specific circumstances of her abduction, establish what happened to her afterward, or confirm her ultimate fate. Because Lynx died in 2000, he cannot be charged, tried, or questioned about what the evidence means. Chief Pointer has been careful, in public statements, to describe the investigation as ongoing and active, not closed, emphasizing that identifying a suspect and determining what actually happened to Morgan remain two separate, unfinished tasks. In the aftermath of the October 2024 announcement, investigators expanded their work to include additional interviews and re-interviews of individuals known to have associated with Lynx during his lifetime, as well as continued searches for any additional physical evidence that might establish where Morgan was taken, or where her remains might be located. One such search had, in fact, already taken place years earlier, well before Lynx was formally named. Investigators searched a rural property in Spiro, Oklahoma, roughly 25 miles southwest of Alma, that had previously been examined in connection with the case, working alongside the FBI and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation after receiving a tip. Officials at the time declined to publicly confirm whether that search was directly connected to any specific new development in the Nick investigation. It illustrates, nonetheless, just how far afield this case's geography has stretched across 3 decades of searching. As of June of 2026, 31 years after Morgan Nick disappeared from that parking lot in Alma, she has never been found, and the investigation remains formally open and active. Investigators continue working to expand their understanding of Billy Jack Lynx's life, movements, and associates in the months surrounding June of 1995, hoping that someone who knew him, worked with him, or crossed paths with him during that period may hold a piece of information that has never surfaced. The Alma Police Department has maintained a public tip line, encouraging anyone with information, no matter how small it may seem, to come forward. Colleen Nick has continued her advocacy work through the Morgan Nick Foundation for more than 3 decades, and has spoken publicly about the strange, complicated nature of the 2024 announcement, describing it, in one interview, as feeling like losing Morgan all over again, even as it represented the most significant step toward answers the family had ever received. The broader significance of Morgan's case has extended well beyond Arkansas. Investigators and forensic genealogists have pointed to the DNA breakthrough in her case as a model for how modern forensic genome sequencing techniques might be applied to other long-cold missing persons cases nationwide. Cases where investigators once believed there was simply nothing left to test. If Morgan Nick is alive today, she would be 37 years old. Morgan Nick spent the last confirmed minutes of her childhood doing something entirely ordinary, chasing fireflies in a parking lot, in plain sight of her own mother, after a small-town baseball game on a warm June evening. 31 years later, the case has produced a named suspect, a landmark piece of forensic evidence, and still, painfully, no confirmed answer about where she is. What this case demonstrates, more clearly than almost any other, is that cold does not mean closed, that a truck sold and resold across a quarter of a century can still hold the answer investigators spent decades looking for, if the right technology and the right persistence eventually meet in the same place. If this episode helped you understand how a 30-year-old case can still move forward, please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to Unsolved and Unforgotten for our next case. Anyone with information related to Morgan Nick's disappearance is asked to contact the Alma Police Department's tip line at 1-800-THE-LOST or their local FBI field office. She is missing. She is not forgotten.